Hello, everybody. Welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Ben Roy.
Hello there.
I'm Josh Brown.
Hello.
Now, all three of us have finished Gears of War 5, or Gears 5 as the kids like to call it, and we have a whole variety of opinions. Now, this is a full-on spoiler cast. Don't say you weren't warned. We're going to be delving into everything, including a big old choice that happens at the end of the game that lets you pick which character gets to survive, assumedly for Gears 6, and the future of the series, alongside all the other story things and details and whatever that we want to talk about, because we are divided on this game, although I think it's me versus the two of them.
I think it's mostly you versus the two of us, Scott Telford.
Scott Telford versus the world once
for the first time. Let's just talk about that big old choice. So, yes, which one did you guys pick? Did you pick JD or Dell?
JD.
JD.
I let Just Die.
Brilliant. I'm glad you went with the nothing character. Why did you pick Dell?
Because Dell is pretty integral to the whole story with Kate. Like, Kate needed someone to go with, and I don't think, especially back then, JD just got blown up by the Hammer of Dawn, so, needed someone. And I feel like they've really done like a 180. Is it 180?
180. Yeah.
180, yeah, with Dell. Like, he feels to me now like a character. Sorry about that. He feels to me now like a character. Like, before he was just, I'm going to smile and be there. And, now he's kind of like fallen into more of like a younger Baird. Like, he's the tech guy and he's more grounded and he actually has morals. Like, he isn't going to shoot the civilians, and he's got quite a backstory that we just don't really know yet of, like, they threw firebombs into civilians and like they go through all that, and then that whole part isn't really fleshed out for me, but I feel like that grounds him, and as we go more and more on, like, sure we get the fun quips and everything, but I feel like he's integral to like what Kate needs.
I like all that setup stuff.
And I feel like in the moment I was pretty scared in the moment. It just happened and I was very tired. I was like, I just threw the knife and saved him.
Right. Josh,
I'm very conflicted about this because obviously I chose to save JD because it was a really like shocking surprise, like moral choice. I didn't expect to have to choose between.
I didn't expect to have a choice. No.
Yeah, I knew someone was going to die. I didn't know it would be down to me. And in the moment, it was one of those kind of special gaming kind of moments where I didn't know what to do because I was thinking, well, JD hasn't really been around, but he's kind of got more of a story to tell. I really liked Dell. I thought he was a really charming character to follow, but for me, he had not much of a story going for him. I thought JD, especially what happens with him early on, makes him a far more compelling sort of character, in him like dealing with his father and his heritage, in him trying to be a hero and failing essentially and getting lots of people killed. I just felt like there was way more drama to kind of mine from that, especially with his relationship to not only Kate, which is kind of fractured. You got Faz. I went 15 hours playing this game not knowing what that guy's name was.
Called Faz.
Faz. Yeah. You got the relationship with Faz, you got the relationship with Marcus, obviously. I just feel like there is more to mine from him going forward.
Amen, brother.
I just about to say the JD Faz turn sort of thing. Sorry if it is actually Faz, sorry.
It's definitely Faz.
Cool. The JD Faz turn.
I'll give you Faz, but near enough.
Faz. It's like we missed a chapter where something happened, like where something was meant to the turn, because they came back going, we're here now, and you're like, wait a minute, when are you going to do the double turn? When are you going to grass us up to the big generals?
We can get onto like the rest of the crew and stuff in a bit, but I think that whole differentiation between Dell and JD, like for me, I couldn't do it to Marcus. I couldn't let his son die. That man's been through enough, and he doesn't need to then lose his son. Mainly because if you do that, then the only drama he has in Gear 6 is an elevated sense of wanting to fight the good fight, which he already wants to do anyway. So it's like, well, like, what does that even do? Like, we lose Anya in between games, so like
he's still got Coltrane to look after.
He kind of has Coltrane, who they sort of do like a weird fake out with, who let for a second do you think that he's actually dead, but whatever. But yeah, in terms of JD, like you talk about the different characters being set up, the way that they set Dell up. I didn't get any of the stuff that you mentioned in terms of the like his morals or like he doesn't like shooting innocent people, but that I wouldn't say that's like a defining trait. Like that's like something that they all kind of twist their faces up at, and the only person who wants to do that stuff is Faz, which like later on when he comes back in Act 3, they're just totally fine with him again, and he doesn't mention it again and whatever. Whereas like with JD, he kind of deals with that. At least at the beginning anyway. And the way they set him up is that he's kind of he's almost like a child's drawing of Marcus. Like he kind of becomes this like fake version of Marcus. But again, they don't really do anything with it. The reason I saved JD is because I thought he actually had a future. Mm-hmm. Like I view Dell as a support character, like 101. Like for me, and this is, I'm not meaning to be insulting to the people who wrote him, but for me, he reminds me of Mass Effect Andromeda's writing or Destiny's writing or any of the new style way of writing an accessible protagonist protagonist that's just completely inoffensive, toothless, and just can be in any game.
Yeah, see, I would partly agree with that. I don't think the writing is that bad, but I do think he's kind of a little bit bland. Even though I thought he was charming and I enjoyed my journey with him and Kit, I just feel like there wasn't much depth to him. Yeah, there's just not much depth to him, especially in comparison to JD, who, especially in Chapter 1, they flesh out so much. We will get to Chapter 3 in a bit, I no doubt, because they make a lot of choices in that chapter that I don't agree with and I think work against the story. But for me, when I was in that moment choosing between the two, it was strange because I was thinking emotionally about who I liked, but also I was thinking about the mechanics of the plot. I was thinking, which is going to have more dramatic consequences going forward? How is this going to impact Marcus? Because there's a part of me that would like to see him kind of like lose his son, but then also I like that JD
Why do you want to see that?
Well, it's good for the drama, isn't it? You know, sad Marcus is something, I don't revel in it, but I like to be emotional by it.
I wanted sad Marcus also. I feel like that's going to give him some sort of grounded weight towards the end, like, now he's lost everything. What is he going to do this for? For the planet of Sarah and like to finally finish this fight.
He's already tied into it because of Anya, though.
Which we still haven't really... She was actually mentioned, thank God, a little bit more in this game, but we still don't really know.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it was JD's time. And sure, you can say that Del is more of those supporting characters, but that's what Baird used to be. And now Baird is, especially in this game, Baird is such a step up, even from what it was. I loved him in the old games, but now he just... I can't imagine that game without him being there and him on the comms.
They definitely toned down how snarky he is. Like, he still gets that bit of his personality.
He's grown
but
up,
not,
hasn't he?
Yeah. He's like matured a little bit and he's sort of reined himself in a bit. There's something that I have a problem with, though, in terms of the overall like script writing. Like, if a script has to point out what you're supposed to think about a character, then for me it's not good script writing. So like, there's a bit twice where Kate says in Act 2 to Del, "I'm so glad you're here. I couldn't do this without you. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're strong because I'm not." And blah, blah. And it's like, if you're listing what like we would say as an analysis if it was better written, then I can't like that. And I think that's like, for me, that's a massive mistake. And they do it with Faz as well, where after the bit when he comes back, when they write him completely differently, and then he literally says to someone else, he says, "Oh, you're falling in love with me, aren't you? Oh, I'm not that bad." And I'm like, you don't need to tell us. Like, if you're falling back on that, it's indicative of not a very confident script in its characters. It's plainly stating what you're supposed to take away from it.
We probably shouldn't dwell on this forever, but I do think that is just a Faz thing where Faz is like that, especially some of the quips and what we play, just like he is just full of himself. And
Yeah. I mean, there's a way to like do that where it would be endearing and you would fall in love with him, but they set up that thing where he's totally fine killing innocent people and they never go back to it.
That turn should have happened in the beginning of the next game. It shouldn't have happened now. It's confusing.
Especially if like the whole deeper meaning of the stuff that they sort of start tapping into is like the difference between doing your job and being a cog and like being desensitized to it, and look at what Marcus and stuff have become, like the nth degree of that spectrum, and how that's different to the real you, and you can still have emotions, which is what the core of Gears always was. The Mad World trailer and all that kind of stuff, it was always the action and the emotions are always two completely separate things, and they used to always be able to tick both of those boxes, but like they kind of start going in directions again with the start with JD, who like tries to sacrifice himself to bring the Hammer of Dawn in, and then it obviously backfires, and then he completely changes his aesthetic and everything and his approach to the world, but then they don't do anything with it and it's all surface level, and then they go, "Oh hey, but you're going to make a decision," and that decision sucks, but like in terms of like the ramifications, but it doesn't have anything to do with the whole beginning thing. You're not choosing to like, it's not like it's not a similar situation. They're not like a massive amount riding on it, other than, like I said, Del or JD.
I kind of wish it wasn't a decision, because if we're going to have Gear 6 and if we have a Gear 7 or something like that, are they going to either retcon it and say this is the choice that you were meant to have, or they just have to kill the other one?
Yeah.
Because always the writing from now on is going to be too weird and splintered.
I think they'll look at the player data and whatever the majority of people did will be the canon.
I think I'll be happy if that happened.
I'll be amazed if Del carries through as the main choice. Just objectively, I'd be amazed if that's what they wanted to plan.
That's what I was worried about. It's weird how this one choice got me thinking about the machinations of how video games are made, but I was sort of wondering going forward whether my choice would even mean anything in Gears 6. Because I feel like Gears 5, even though it starts well, it's building to some resolution that doesn't come in Gears 5. It's always like sort of the Walking Dead syndrome of it's promising a resolution that's going to come further on down the line in the season finale.
They end on another cliffhanger.
And also I think like my choice was skewed as well because I played through this with a friend from start to finish. The friend that I played 1, 2, 3, 4 with. So it was like, I've got to save you. I can't. The AI guy, I thought he might have been okay, not just I come back net break. But then if you notice, I think does Del's body fall into the floor as well as?
I cannot remember actually.
Because when JD dies, the floor breaks up and his body intact slides down. So I kind of think that one of them is going to come back as some sort of monster.
Yeah, I think that's probably them leaving something open.
If we can transfer a consciousness via the hive, I think that they're going to reanimate that body in some way.
Well, they've already done it in 5. They bring Kate's mum back. Rhaena, whatever.
They transferred her, so I think we're going to get something like that.
That would be cool.
That's it. You mentioned Act 3. What was the stuff you wanted to say about that?
I have a lot to say about Act 3, Scott, because when I was playing Gears 5, even though I was excited about it, Gears is one of my favourite franchises ever. We don't talk about it much for some reason until this week, but I absolutely love the original games. I love the story. I thought Gears 4 was okay, but I wasn't exactly hyped for this game. I was excited to give it a try.
I think your thoughts mirror the vast majority of the players.
But then when I actually got it on that, launch night on the Friday or whatever, and I started playing it, and I was just so surprised at how many risks the story was taking. I thought, oh my god, JD's an actual character. They're doing this stuff about, shooting innocent people. He's bringing down the Hammer of Dawn. He's getting people killed. There are real consequences to what's going on. And that carries through into Chapter 2 as well. Even though it goes open world, you are still finding out about Kate's backstory. You're finding out about the Locust and Niles and all of this great world building. And then for me, that all just comes to a halt in Act 3. When you're just putting the rocket together, which is fun enough, but the narrative itself, considering this is the final stage before the final chapter, which is only a couple of missions long anyway, and I just feel like all the momentum that they had sort of dissipates, especially when it comes to the characters of JD and Faz. They reappear out of nowhere, completely different to how you last saw them, especially Faz, who's now quippy and jokey, and I like that. I think he's very fun, and JD's obviously very fun, but it feels like Ben Roy said at the beginning where there's a chapter missing, potentially.
It's weird, because they reintroduce JD and Faz, and they do this whole thing where it's like, and they're self-aware about it, like JD, I think Del says something to JD about like, oh, we couldn't trust you before, or we're not sure about you, or whatever, and same to Faz. And JD jokes and says, oh, just get it all out your system, it's okay, like it's fine. And it's like they never go into what happened in between those things. With Act 3 though, like my whole thing, that was when I turned the game off. Like I just, like that whole stuff in Act 2, because we'd heard about like, oh, it's going to have these sort of like semi-open world elements, it's going to have all these side missions, and it's going to be way more sporadic and whatever. And I didn't mind that much in 2, but I still was like, every time you do a side mission, every time you do a combat encounter, it just reminded me how awesome Gears combat is, and I just wanted to do more of it. So for me, it started to become like a little minor sort of worry, like, oh, you got to go back to the skiff and ride to the next thing. And those worlds are so empty. There are not like a whole bunch of NPCs or things to do or things to see, really. Like, it's just a big play space. I know you'll get there. But like, that was the thing that started to weigh on me. And I was like, I'm not really enjoying piloting the skiff. It's fine. There's no boost to it. Like, the level isn't really set up in a way to do ramps or stunts or whatever.
There's a natural boost. Wind.
It's so boring, man. Like, oh, if you get in the right sort of like angle, it'll go slightly faster. It's not remotely fast in the first place. But yeah, my whole thing with that was it started to like build up how annoying like that open world design was, because it was just distracting from what Gears is, and I felt those two like personalities, that's so identities for the potential of what Gears could be, clashing with each other. So when I finally got through Act 2 and you get all of those brilliant story moments, like this is what Kate's history was, all this stuff with Queen Mirror, like all this stuff that we've been asking like since the beginning of Gears of War, why is there a human Locust Queen and everything else? Once that was resolved and it just ended, and then Act 3 was like, nope, go do all that stuff again, go get back into another open world. I literally was like, nah, I'm done. Like, I don't need it. You've resolved the biggest thing, and you're putting me in complete like rote crap that I don't need to do or want to do.
I kind of know what you mean, because Act 3 for me does bring the entire pacing to a halt. But in Act 2, for instance, when that went open world, even though you had the main drive of, the story of like the Locust Queen and what Niles was doing, there was enough in the world for me to still enjoy myself. We talked about when we did our video on like why it's dividing the fans or whatever, some of the biggest kind of combat encounters that I remember like fondly are the ones that I just found out in the world, where I'm shooting, the frozen lake underneath the swarm's feet and they're falling in, and like the kind of little stories that I discovered along the way, the people who kind of froze to death, for instance. Or I just stopped behind like a car one time, and I jumped in and found like a document, and I thought that's really exciting. For me, this was the first time the wider Gears mythology kind of clicked for me, because even though it's always been there, I was never fully into, I never believed that it was a world that people lived in, if that made sense. Whereas what I love about this, and even 4 to an extent, is that I feel like there's a wider society or culture that I'm actually fighting for. I've gone back to play Gears of War 1 Ultimate Edition recently.
I've honestly gone back through the trilogy since then,
and it's awesome, but I get the same feeling there, where even though obviously it's years after the Locust War started, I didn't really feel like this is a kind of real world worth fighting for. I didn't really get that there's other things happening outside my own little bubble, whereas in Gears 5, I genuinely do.
I know exactly what you mean, but you should totally defend Act 3.
For me, like, to kind of start back to, like, I thought Act 2, the open world stuff, was probably almost like perfect. Act 3 is where it did kind of fall down a bit. Like when you have to go all the way down and then come all the way back. I was like, you could have probably like engineered a helicopter picking us up and taking us right back up the hill, because maybe going up and down one or two times is a bit much. But again, like Josh says, like I feel like it's kind of okay for them to go off and be a bit more empty, because they're in a desert and then two of them, it's not the main fight. She's going Kate and Dale are going to find like what's going on, and they're being assigned these little missions by Paddock and Baird, and finding these certain moments. Like there's one little part where there's a boat in the sand, and can you say the drop shot guys? The most infuriating thing in this game. I hate them so much.
One-hit kills can just get out of every single video game.
Yeah.
We never learn from them. All you do is just restart and go, well, I guess I should zig when I start.
Hitting your head on the wall. But that whole thing where I did one guy and I snuck around, and I had a long shot for most of this game because I just like to play with the long shot and the Lancer. And knifed a guy, long shot a few people, and just like, it was weird to have that nice little stealth tactic in a game that's so smooth as like a Gears game, not just like ropey and a bit broken. Sure, like some of the combat situations were a bit like, oh, okay, now there's more juvies coming. Okay, cool,
more DBs.
But for me, I feel like I feel like it is empty, yes. But then again, it's the weird argument of like, do you think a desert should have like something around every corner sort of thing?
To be fair, no, but I don't think they should have a desert in Gears.
So I was good to say.
That's literally it.
Would you, let me pose this to you, would you prefer if it was, say, like, not an open world, but say like more wide linear where you go in one direction, you don't go back and
there's a level of focus that the old games had, and if you go back to the original trilogy, which I've done, like they have a certain pace, and they just absolutely go, like you're going from combat encounter to a very quick cutscene or a dialogue thing or whatever, and you're right back into combat again, which is why we fell in love with that series in the first place. Like it showcases a certain set of mechanics better than any other third-person shooter ever has. In this though, it's great. The stuff that you guys have said, like the combat encounters, I love that. I love the new mechanics. I like the little sprinkling of stealth that you can get where you can thin a few enemies out or whatever. Just remove the massive patches of nothing and stitch those areas together. Have a way more focused, like it just, you're not losing anything by losing the skiff.
There was a moment, in Act 2 where you go to this radar station, there's a note on the door, and someone's written like, I had to leave. And you don't actually get to find that location properly, even on the big map system. We just came across that as we were going, like, oh, this is the place.
I found a guy.
Yeah, and then the person's in the bed, and you go back and like, little moments like that really clicked me.
But I was going to see the total opposite, because like you find the guy and he's mutated and you kill him, and then she goes, I guess that was that guy.
No, we found a dead person in bed.
I found like a mutated guy, and then Kate's like, oh, I guess that was him, but I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe there was someone in that building, but you go off and find another building with like a key or something, or the codes to get in there. And like those little moments I kind of liked. And I was really intrigued by Act 3, but maybe Act 4 should have been a bit more tighter and a bit more not. I felt like there was a bit more going up and down back to that station. I think you go there 3 times almost.
Yeah, it's annoying.
The thing that you said about that you on about before, about the difference between you feel like you're in a world now that you weren't in before. That's true, because they double down so much on terminology and like backstory and like all these different things, these documents that you can find, and that's fine. I think that's sort of represents where we are at in gaming right now. Like people want to know like shared universes. They want to know that they're part of like a mythology and a lore. I would just argue that it's not conducive to what Gears of War is, and it's like you can plug those things in, but like I said, the certain pace that the old games had, it was like, you're a soldier, you're a cog, you're on planet Sarah, there's evil locust dudes, go kill them. It's more representative of where gaming was in the 2000s. And it's like, if you're going to mature that series, then look to the likes of Uncharted 4 or God of War, and you do it in a focused way that, like, I still think it's a massive mistake not extrapolating on Marcus's mentality, not taking him forward, let him be the one who finds out about the cog secrets.
See, we've talked about this before, and I'm interested to see what Ben Roy thinks, because I feel like I like having Marcus and Baird and Cole as secondary characters now, because the world has moved on so much. We're over 2 decades removed from Gears of War 3. And I feel like even though this is still obviously the aftermath of the Locust War and we're starting something new, I feel even it's like obviously indebted to that. I feel like, this is not their world anymore, really. They're sort of like the older guard of heroes who they've sacrificed essentially everything so this new sort of generation can live. And I think there's something more valuable seeing it through their eyes, because this is their world now, and they're sort of relics of something that's still kind of lingering around, but essentially they're trying to separate fully from.
I'll quickly mention, because the thing is, like there was totally a moment in this game where I cried. and it's not. I wasn't expecting it at all, and you only get it if you save JD. But there's a bit where it's when you go back, because the thing is, I feel really attached to Marcus as a character, only because I spent so much time around him, obviously nostalgically and everything else. But the scenes where they bring him in, like he really is this old dinosaur just trying to help out. That's all you can do is a certain set of skills or whatever, and it's not like he's going to be going out there doing much else other than fighting. But the cutscene that you get if you save JD, when you finally tell him like, oh, we couldn't save Dell or whatever, and JD's like broken. One, you never see really burly, over the top characters like that openly sobbing and genuinely being so broken, like a complete like deconstruction of a macho stereotype. You never see that, especially in video games, which I really like to see. That wasn't the thing that got me though. It's after that when Marcus tries to console his son, which you've never really see it in Gears 4. It's like they're kind of father and son, but it's more quippy and whatever. And Marcus tries to like tap him on the shoulder to like, you don't know what he's going to do. He's going to try and like hug him. You don't really know what it is. And eventually like he turns him back around, and the facial animation they do on JD, he's so done. He's just so broken. And you could totally write a whole thesis about how every moment that JD's done has led to that moment. He looks ridiculous. It's not really the real him. And he's just an imitation of Marcus. And in that moment, they just look at each other and they don't say anything. And JD keeps crying and they just hug.
Yeah.
That absolutely got me.
I loved that scene.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the heart. That's the heart that they always had in Gears, and it should have been there throughout, because you've got these characters and you've so much to play with. Someone as big and stupid and kebab-legged as Marcus Phoenix, like being able to hug his son is still a crowning moment in the franchise, but they just should have had a way more confident script that picked apart the COG stuff beforehand and everything else. You could have had a whole game of this stuff, and it would have been God of War.
I agree. I think that would have been really good. I would have liked more Marcus, especially, both in regards to JD and Kate, because I really like his relationship with Kate. But yeah, for me, that moment is like the pinnacle of the game. I loved. That's why I don't regret like saving him.
That and Marcus insulting Faz.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like with JD and sort of Marcus in that moment, you sort of see, especially kind of what Marcus is going through, because obviously he lost his best friend to a war. Now 25 years later, JD's done the same thing. If you've made these choices, and that's just kind of like history repeating itself. We've got it physically with a brand new threat, but now we've got it with like history repeating itself even within the actions.
Imagine that conversation though.
Yeah.
If they actually wrote, if they went with it, if they had the confidence to write that story, they'll probably do it in Gear 6, but sit JD down with Marcus and they talk about what is even the point of devoting a life to this stuff.
I don't know if they will though, because it's more about them having the weird broken relationship. Like, as we go back to the characters, I don't feel like this is their story anymore, because you've just got Coltrane who wants to come back and just jump in and say,
he was always like a cartoon.
Yeah, woo.
Yeah.
And I did get on the edge of my seat when I thought that he was going to get crushed inside that mech.
Right.
I legit thought he was gone. I was like, you can't do the Coltrane like that.
I just thought that, I kind of thought there's no way they're doing that, and they purposefully shoot the framing is like the top half, so I was like, he's definitely in the top half.
But I feel like they're maybe with a bit more Marcus, but I feel like especially Baird's placement in this story, perfect.
Yeah.
Like I do get that bit of a hole in that free when it's Baird on the microphone
control
instead of Marcus. And I feel like Marcus could have been there with you guys, but I guess that they all had to go off and pull out their own pods. But that moment when you had that, it's with that Avengers moment when everyone's there before they go out and have this fight, and like, we're going to take it to them this time.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. No, the whole city gets destroyed. But
yeah. Well,
it's just, Gears ingrained in me as well from the very start. It's the first game I got on 360, and played online as well. And when Dom died, I had that moment where I had a little bit of oh my god, I can't believe it's Dom gone, and the Mad World came on.
Yeah.
And I also, from what I saw of Marcus losing his son, just the way he just coldly just reacted and barely did anything, looked at the cogs and
he says we're not done. He has to go and do something else.
And he's like, where's JD? And it's just no, I can't really do the Marcus, but and then as you carry on fighting, and then you get towards the end, just there and then just looking off into the distance, this is taking another soul, and it's taking it, I guess, more in a bigger way. That's kind of why I went for the choice.
I think that's they would obviously, for the future of the series, would like to pass the baton on to the new characters. And I mean, it's weird because there's a lot of stuff going on in entertainment now about passing the baton to a new generation of characters. Two examples for me is Star Wars and Creed. You have the old guard there, you have your Han Solo, you Luke Skywalker, you have Rocky, and they're all training new people, and you get to address past things. God of War, for me, God of War is the best example in video games. Uncharted did it as well in terms of recognizing what his pros and cons are. It's kind of an evolution from a video game character to a full person. comparison. And like Kratos did it so well, like addressing to Atreus, like you just need to be better than me. Like I'm broken, I'm too far gone. And like using like his trying to treat his like Spartan rage as like an actual like sort of mental condition, and like he has this actual anger problem that he's dealing with, and like there's ways to do that stuff. Marcus didn't have that much to him. He was this big archetypal space marine, like walking gun. But like there's ways to dissect that if they're going to go down the cog route.
I think because they want to. We have to have that in film because people just age out and people just look too old. But with games, I guess that they could have. I mean, I wanted more Marcus in 4. Like, I don't really feel like you just need to shove everyone off to the side. It has been 25 years and people are getting a bit old now. Where I guess
25 years.
It's been 25 years since Gears 3 to 4.
Oh, okay. I think meant since the game came out.
It's been 25
I'm not that old.
Long years. But yeah, I guess you don't really need the passing of the torch. And the more people say about Kratos, and the more I think of Marcus, just a sole just Marcus game of him now just walking off into the woods or something like that'd be amazing.
Yes, it would. Like if you're going to keep calling it Gears of War or Gears 5, it has to have something to do with what you set up. Like if you're going to do something else, then those developers need to do something else, and it can just say from the makers of Gears of War.
Unlike Halo, like Gears of War has more characters. Sorry to say, but like there's not really that many characters that I've ever cared about in Halo, and like here in Gears of War, I feel like there's like a nice cast that's still alive. Like you've got a lot of people.
I will just say that I only care about the old crew. Like I care about Kate, but it's more about what she means. And it's like the way that they wrote her, like sometimes she feels more fleshed out, but the most of the time she's responding to a quip. And like the most kind of personality I feel that she gets is her responding to some really flat joke from everyone else.
I did feel her like dread of being under the thumb of the swarm and like trying to resist it the whole time. And I did feel that like her struggle, and she doesn't really want that. And I really believed it.
See, this is what we're saying. Like we're talking about how good it would be if Marcus was in it more or JD was in it more. But it's like effectively Gears 5 is very much not their story anyway. It's Kate's story.
Yeah.
And you might not be on board with that, but for me, that had enough compelling components to see it through, especially in the first 2 acts where she's finding out about her heritage. And like Ben Roy said, I really felt the dread of when she's succumbing to the swarm or what might happen then. She's getting these headaches and these hallucinations. And I thought that was really interesting, a really interesting direction to go down, especially for a Gears game. And we've had, macho Marcus just shoveling through for the past 3 to 4 games.
Marcus kind of knows a few more things than he's letting on, because when you're going through like the lab from Gears 1, which was I couldn't believe he's going back there, and it's not a big location, but you're like, wait a minute, I recognise those. So, oh my god, where are we?
Yeah.
And then you wait for them to come out, and then they never come. But like Marcus is kind of like easing her into letting her find out herself.
I've totally clarified. Like I was totally on board with Kate going into the game, and I don't think that I think she's totally worthwhile. Like you should pass the baton. My issue is with how well they did that, and how sort of flat Act 3 feels. How much they kind of blow all their load at the end of Act 2, and they don't have anywhere else to go. I was fascinated by the idea of I was fascinated by a new generation trying to pick up from where the other one left off. I just don't think they do enough with it. And for me, if we're going to talk about the overall new cast, I think they fall back on really established, for me, boring writing tropes of just really lame one-liners and really flat character writing that you see across the board in AAA video games.
It does feel like course correction a bit as well, because I feel like 4 was going to go somewhere totally different, and it feels like they're turn a bit, and then by 6 we'll have gotten there properly. There's inklings of the Marcus stuff that we really need from this game. And
I think if you're going to make a clean break, and the thing is they bring Marcus and Baird and Cole in more in this, especially in Act 1 and Act 4, where they're on the comms or they're with you in your squad and they're helping you out, and like John DiMaggio's voice is a constant thing in your ear kind of thing, which is like enough to be like, hey, old school fans, like we got you, but we're still going to move forward. It's not really like a natural transition. And then they kind of boil it down to that decision, but they haven't really done that much to really make it work kind of thing.
What I think is fascinating, what's going to be exciting when I get further through the original Gears trilogy, is that even though I loved those games, the story itself was never totally compelling to me. I liked it enough. I thought it was interesting enough. I obviously really liked the characters, but that was mostly just through being around them for so long. I don't think they were particularly really well written. I thought they had enough behind them, like Marcus, Dom, Coltrane was obviously a big bad banter lad, as was kind of Baird. I think they get better towards Gears 3, but it's Gears 1 especially, I feel like they're kind of almost bland stereotypes in a way.
I will say, if you go back to those games, they are a lot longer than I remember them as well.
Yeah.
Well, my counter to that is that that's completely intentional. I wouldn't say they're bland stereotypes, because I wouldn't say that they line up with any stereotype, unless maybe Cole,
I would say Cole, Baird, and kind of even Marcus is sort of like the gritty war legend who has to like.
He would be if they didn't open it with that Mad World advert. Like, I always thought that they had enough emotion underpinning it. But for the vast majority, I think the target demographic or the way that they're writing them is they're cartoon characters.
Yeah.
And they're meant to be over the top and memorable because of it. And that obviously, like, it's a staple of where the gaming industry was in the 2000s.
Yeah.
But, like, the new guys, the new people have nothing, like, compared. Like, you know, they're obviously trying to, like, mature them and ground them down. What would real people say in these situations or whatever? Not everyone's saying woo, Coltrane baby or whatever, but I don't think they give you any alternative. Like, there's a way to ground a character, Nathan Drake, Kratos.
I feel like Kate is one of the best characters they've had. I feel like she's better than some of, like, Dom. Like, if I look back here, like, sure, the bit where Dom loses his wife and then dies is very emotional, but I feel like I care more about Kate rather than Dom was more of a player 2 character for a lot of those games.
I'd say the thing with Kate, which kept popping up to me, is like she undergoes those weird like head trips where she realizes that her mum's like still alive, and she doesn't respond to them. Like it happens internally. You can say that okay, she's internalizing this. She doesn't want to become like a liability to Dell or whoever she's with at the time. Fine, but there's times when you're in Act 2 when you're in the lab and she's picking up documents about her and it's describing her and saying like your mum was a experiment and all these different things. No reaction, no inner monologue. There's nothing. They don't go there with her, and so I don't buy that she's this like more multifaceted character. I do in terms of the role that she plays, but I don't think that they wrote her in a way that's really dealing with it. Like I keep comparing it because I just think Sony's doing it better. Like Nathan Drake is a full-on dissection of what it used to be a video game adventurer, discarding once and you know your wife and everything else. And Kratos is a full dissection of what it used to be a violent, crazy.
Would you say it's a problem that these were inherently multiplayer games, and that's why you can't go as far as that? Because Gears of War is always multiplayer in the campaign, and it's got massive multiplayer online stuff. Like I've played that loads. I feel like, but the games we're sort of describing them to are like, but we want them to go there. They're single player. They're meant for one person, meant for like one like concise point. Like I think that may hinder it a bit.
They don't really have scenario. I mean, they have no scenarios in Gears 5 where you're picking paths. Like they used to have them in the old ones,
where they split you off, but they put you together. If you're playing together, they do make you go with each other.
Right.
Like, when you go into that dark underground base at the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that. I know exactly what you mean. Like, yeah, the Sony examples that I'm citing are like dedicated first person, like single player games. The Gears thing, I just don't think it's in the script writing. I don't think they wrote a good enough script.
It's not as good as it could be better. I will totally concede this, but I feel like it just does so much well. Even though we can pick it apart when you talk about how Kate doesn't quite get there, I feel like there's enough potential in there to hopefully succeed in Gears 6. And for me, the biggest kind of indicator of that is how they've treated Marcus. Like I was saying before, even though I loved Marcus from the older games, I didn't really know who he was as a character much. I knew he was big, gruff John DiMaggio, and I knew that I kind of wanted to protect him at all costs.
That's all I want.
But he only became a proper, fully 3D character to me in Gears 4 and Gears 5, and now we can get those moments where he hugs JD, and I'm thinking, actually, I'm really emotional because I'm really invested in this man. You see a close-up of his face, and he's looking all old, and he's looking all, war-torn, and he's kind of, I can just tell that he's emotionally just completely fizzled out.
Yep.
And I don't think I would have got that in the first 3 games. Here, I just have to see one image, and I'm so emotionally just wrecked, and I feel like that must be something that the Coalition has done over the past couple of games that is really good.
I also think that from when Dom got off, I think that's when we started actually seeing like Marcus come out as a person like realizing, oh wait, we can just have more losses than a Carmine or 2 or several hundred cogs over there in the corner sort of thing. Like, and from here on, we've seen him like get back into the fight. Like, oh, I've got to come back and don't touch his tomatoes. But I feel like they've done a great enough job with him, and I feel like we're going to get a lot more Marcus in the next one. It's just weird how this is Kate's story in the end of it, and that I think they're trying to bring all the story lines back together at the end.
The thing is, it's Kate's story because that's who you have to focus on in Acts 2 and 3. And she obviously plays her in 4, but it's also JD's story. Like, they're trying to do this new generation stuff. They had spent a whole game in Gears 4 playing as JD. What's it like to be the son of Marcus Phoenix? Similar to how what's it like to be Raiden hanging out with Solid Snake in Metal Gear 2. And they obviously dissect that way more on the nose in Metal Gear 2. But it's like, if you're going to go down that road, then the script needs to support that. And, like, there's ways to do it. The things that you're talking about caring way more in 4 and 5, is more just where we're at in this generation and as entertainment, as gaming right now. They just didn't do those things in the 2000s because it wasn't the right way to do it back then.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that is still, he didn't have to do it like that. They could have just done the same thing over and over again and satisfied Gears fans, but the fact that he did it at all is still kind of, worth pointing out, because not every franchise did it.
No, true, but that's the thing. If you're going to go there, you need to do it well, and you kind of can't tell like two like sporadic stories with a little bit of Marcus in the background.
I don't
for the old
think
school
it's
fans.
JD's story at all. Like, I think JD was a way to get people into 4, but we get the hints early on of the emblem and the whole thing, and we get at the very end this thing of like, oh wait, no, this is going to be Kate's thing. And sure, we do play as JD for the first level, because that takes place like days after Gears 4 or something like that first level.
I think
It's very soon after, and
it's still how he looks, and
then we quickly go over there. And that, I think the whole Hammer of Dawn stuff is a way to write him out for a bit, to just get him out of the way. But yes,
does that not negate Gears 4 though?
no,
Like
I
there's
feel
a
like
lack of confidence on the
I feel
writing
like
team,
it's probably the Force Awakens thing. Like, we need to ease you in to get you here. I feel like there has been some response, like the way there's a lot less JD in this, because not a lot of the families liked him as much in 4.
But that's the thing. If you pick Del and then JD dies, then ultimately, what was the point of Gears 4, and where did that even go? Like, okay, maybe in Gears 6 they'll pick it up again.
You could say, what was the point of Dom's wife dying?
But it's
because
different. You didn't spend a whole game playing as Dom.
I did. If you played 2-player co-op, you had to play as Dom.
I think it's a different thing. There's also the generation split between 3 and 4.
I would say as well that they probably do the best of the world. Like, the Hammer of Dawn feels like a proper like weapon of mass destruction now. Like, it never has really in those other games.
Did that not make it? Was it not weird to you guys that we were like trying to reactivate something that we just had in the old games? I thought that was a strange thing.
Because now it comes across as really dangerous. Like, they destroy all these innocent people. Poor Lizzie Carmine, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And
Lizzie.
JD gets almost offed. And then towards the end, when you're just literally blowing everything up, and how Paddock describes it in 3, like, really puts a lot of weight behind this thing. Like, should we bring this weapon back on? Because sure, it's going to make it easy, but then we're going to turn on ourselves, or they're going to be more casualties. I think using the hammer in that way has made it feel such a powerful, like, weapon that you should actually fear.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Like, that scene where JD uses it and then it gets out of control, and you can just sort of see Baird step back and be like, oh, I can't believe I've done this, is horrible. And especially towards the end when you're actually using it yourself. And there's a great moment, I can't remember where it happens, but you're fending off a bunch of the swarm, and then you could just get a breather and you look sort of in the distance and you can see all these different hammers coming down, everything's a wreck, and you just sort of like, man, is everything lost? Is everything just completely gone?
It's like when if you had an infestation in a house, like, I'm just going to take a flamethrower to this house, I'm done, sort of
The
thing.
magnifying glass to the tiny ant kind of
Yeah,
thing.
but
Yeah, I mean, the way that they set it up in the first act, like, yeah, you do feel the ramifications of it. It ties directly in. That's the thing. It ties directly into JD. It directly is the reason that he becomes so wounded. And then his way of building himself back up is to make a shell of his former self and a weird reflection of Marcus. But they don't do anything with it.
For me, it's just, I feel like it's a main issue with Act 3, just that, because a lot of the plot threads just don't go anywhere. But I don't see why, you need to have one specific character to follow. Like, you can have JD's story doing all of that, but you can have it in the background while you're focusing on Kate. You can have Marcus sort of going through his motions. I do agree that it could be better written and better fleshed out, but I don't think, you need to make JD the focus or make Marcus the main character to get that juicy drama out of it. I just think it needs to be tighter.
Before coming into 5, playing 1, 2, 3, and 4, I had this inkling that the COG have always been the bad guys in this series, and I think they are. I think like it's because we know that it's their kind of secret division. It's their fault for the locusts. It's kind of their fault that they were driving them out from underground because they were mining so much emulsion and it was causing this problem.
They created Queen Mirror.
Yeah, they've created this whole thing, and now we've got this nice selection of like we could call them heroes or soldiers that are trying to fight back what has gone wrong and what the COG have kind of done wrong to the planet and how they...
It's very Last Jedi, like in a nice way. Like, it's totally what they was trying to do in Last Jedi.
I'm surprised that they didn't go full, like, they now just have to run away, because to me the COGs literally just feels like an evil-ish empire sort of thing, and they've... like, the reason why they won the war against the UIR is because they turned these super weapons on.
I think there'll be a weird disparity because... like, I can totally say the statement, what's wrong with just playing as a bunch of good people fighting some evil dudes? And that's totally what the old Gears games were. And I'll take that. I'll take a Saturday morning action cartoon with guns that have chainsaws on, and I'll go and cut some aliens in half. That's more than enough for me. So, like that's the thing. Like that's if they're gonna go elsewhere, you need to do it well, and I don't think they did it well enough. Also, I wasn't like I think that you can do a little bit of Kate, a little bit of JD, you can flesh that world out. But we both pretty much agreed to just what we said before. Talking to Josh, by the way, for the audio people. But like the things that you said, it's like, you know, those elements do come back in and they're done well. I totally think they're done well too. I love the JD Marcus hug. But when you take a step back and look at it overall, like lots of stuff doesn't add up. Like the Marcus hug works more because we know Marcus Phoenix from the old games. Like things like that, where they're sort of trading on stuff that's established, but then the new elements aren't that great. Like, you know, it's just JD's like a weird failed experiment, and then like you can't just kill him off. So it's like the writers are like, well, if you don't like him either, then we'll go with that.
You know what? I don't want to continue to derail this podcast, but I do disagree with what you said earlier on, where kind of JD's, you know, sort of been. He's become useless, or like they've sort of changed him and admitted defeat that he wasn't good. Because I feel like Gears 5, especially the first act, is all about salvaging JD. Like they finally make him interesting.
But that is them admitting it, though.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that? You know what I mean?
No, I love that.
Okay.
That's the best stuff. Acts 1 and 4 are genuinely really solid and good.
Right. Every act calls upon a different part of Gears, because the Act 2 is more like 1, when you go back into this whole lab sort of thing. 3 is calling back to Judgment in a weird way that I never thought we'd hear again. But they recount all the light mass missile stuff and trying to kill those generals back in there. 4 is a tying of the knot, and then 1 is a transferring from 4 to 5. It's really like, I think that they're different focuses each time, and it does feel a bit broken up sometimes, but I feel like it's, in the end, Gears is now, I don't think it ever should have really focused on one person as much, because Gears 1 and 2 weren't really about the one, it was about the team, and then in 3 we got a bit more about the whole world, and then we got siloed right down to just these crew.
I think just 5 feels like them trying a bunch of different things for a potential of what Gears 6 could be. We'll try a bit of open world stuff. We'll try this stuff with Kate. We'll try some more stuff with JD. They let you make a choice so they can read some player data later, and they leave it on a cliffhanger. So, like for me, there's a marked lack of confidence in where they're going with the Gears franchise. That if I look back at the originals, even though they were just big dudes with guns shooting stuff, they knew what the hell they were and they did it perfectly. This thing feels like a bunch of different experiments, and I like a lot of the stuff that they do, but I don't think it has that same confidence. I don't think it has that same overall sense of polish and finesse that the old games had.
See, for me, Gears 4 was them trying to do that kind of, you know, well, we know what people like. We're going to take it like a team. We're going to fight them against the world. And we're not really going to experiment and stuff. And that was fine. But for me, I can barely remember Gears 4, whereas I feel like Gears 5, we're going to be talking about it at least for a lot longer. We're going to be talking about, like, you know, what they did with sort of the character arcs, what they did with the open world stuff. I feel like just by virtue of trying to be more interesting, it makes me more excited for the future.
Would you say that the open world elements are a success overall?
Yes.
I say it's better than Gears 4. I feel like Gears 4, and also some story points failed in Gears 4, like the finding out that the swarm is coming in. No one ever really stands still and goes, wait a minute.
What?
They're coming back. Just like, oh, they're coming back, move away.
Oh, Mark's a lot like General Ram, but let's just carry on.
Marcus has just been gobbled up. See you later, mate.
Yeah.
Just sort of thing. But I feel maybe a bit more constricted next time and not 2 different massive worlds. One would be good.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do the open world stuff, it should have there should be a reason to go out and find all that extra stuff. Like, it's there and you can find it. Same as like kind of like Control, you can go out and find more stuff. It's more conducive to what's going on in Control. But Gears is like, well, we have an open world, so we should have a couple of collectibles.
Did you not like the stuff in Gears 2, like coming across the areas of Gears? Sorry, in Gears 5, they're coming across the areas of Gears 2, like, you know, the I can't remember the names, the trucks that shoot you underground.
They're called like diggers or something.
Yeah, they're recalling them. It's like, oh, cool, this is like some of these from where they were driving through, sort of thing. Like,
yeah, but it's like that's like an Easter egg. Like, it's like, yeah, that's fine, but like the overall thing I've been doing for the last 3 hours is aimlessly driving around on a skiff that's fine to try and find the next bit of gameplay. Like, that was the stuff that just kept getting
I wouldn't call it aimlessly, but yeah.
I know what you mean. And it's like, I'm obviously getting like more, I bounced off it so hard in Act 3. I just thought that it got in the way of what I love from Gears. Like, that's what it kept getting in the way of. We might as well end on what do you guys want from Gears 6? Where do you think they'll go from here?
I want them to focus, whoever they pick to go forward with, even if, you know, they stick with your own individual decisions. I want that decision at the end of Gears 5 to actually mean something.
Right.
And I want them to focus on the fallout of that. I don't know how much work that's going to be, probably loads, but as long as they make that decision consequential in the grand scheme of things, that's fine by me. I'd like them to stick with some open world elements. I agree with you that they need to be more populated with either lore or things to do, but I would just like, to be honest, I'd like a bigger game. I know this sounds rich coming from me who wants everything to be sort of 3 hours long, but I feel like Gears 5 could have been, like, honestly, a almost perfect experience if you had another chapter sort of linking things together, focusing on how JD and Faz, you know, went from these completely disillusioned people to back on board. And I just feel like Gears 5, Gears 6 can sort of take those two elements and properly merge them, because the linear stuff is the best it's ever been, in my opinion.
If they wrote the interstitial chapter 2.5 for the whole thing, Kate finds out all her stuff with Queen Mirror, and then she's like, oh my god, this is a massive, I need to pass this stuff out. You go back to JD, and the only person that's here for him when all that stuff goes down in Act 1 is Faz, the guy that's the most militaristic dude that they've set up so far, and he somehow finds companionship in him. They flesh all that out, and then they come back together.
Yeah.
And then they're like, what even is our life anymore? And then you get the relaxed approach to Act 3. All of that would have made more sense.
I think, sorry, but right. I think if there was a linear chapter like 1 or 4 in between 2 and 3, I think it would have been, I could easily say it's my favorite Gears game.
Yeah, you could have segued way more. I'm never going to get anywhere near to it being the best Gears game. It's the original trilogy.
We definitely needed like a break between the two open worlds, and I think if you had that between when Della and Kate are going off to Sandworld, and you had the Faz, as you just said, and JD reconciling, wait a minute, are we dicks?
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically a whole chapter of are we dicks? No, now we should be good, not just turning up out of nowhere. That is a lot more of a solid game.
I wonder if they'd ever ditch that, because if they pull that question apart and JD says, like, they get to some sort of question where they asked Faz, why is he okay firing on innocent civilians? The only answer to that, I assume, would be something relating to, well, I had orders from the COG and it's desensitized me over time, which whatever.
Yeah.
That is only ever going to devalue the Gears of War IP, because they at some point need to trade on how fun it is to be big macho people shooting stuff.
The whole thing from Faz and JD kind of like, oh well, we shot some innocent people, to now we're saving the world at the very end. It is kind of a hard left turn.
It's just a weird, jarring thing. What would you want from Gears 6?
Dizzy. Dizzy to return,
Dizzy.
like big rig or whatever you want. Just give me that cowboy hat and that big bushy beard.
Ben Roy's love for Dizzy.
I know.
Dizzy is a legend in the COG army. Also, it's weird. I want things to be tied up, but then I do want more Gears after this. Like,
right.
I don't know if we can do another they've returned enemy sort of thing. Like, maybe there's going to be. Do you think there could be some weird harmony peace thing? But the Swarm seemed so more aggressive than the Locusts ever were.
The whole tone of Gears for me, especially from the beginning when they had the Mad World thing, is you're a bunch of people going up against an alien force that is unstoppable. The whole tone of that series is that everything's bearing down on you and you're doing the bare minimum to survive. You've resorted to strapping chainsaws to guns so you can keep them at bay. If something gets close enough to you, that's your final thing you can do. And so that's the tone that I want them to double down on. I don't want the quips and I don't want the lighthearted stuff. I want them to completely double down on that stuff. I don't even know if Gary Jules is still alive, but resurrect him, get him to do another song, and do that for Gears 6. I don't think they'll ever have a resolution, because then this franchise is over. You just do a bigger and bigger escalation.
Like 3 felt like an ending. We need that sort of like pseudo ending. We can leave it now for a few years, but I don't think you're going to get away from the quips, because they were kind of around. Like they were just
done better.
They're more segmented to other characters. But
this is the one bit that broke me is the bit in Act 3 when someone says something about it's not rocket science. It's you'd think putting a rocket together would be easy. It's not rocket science. Like, oh, really? That's your level we're on.
Wasn't that more Dale and Faz bickering with each other?
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, but I think actually have kind of like more of a bigger war sort of scene, because Act 1, when the swarms start flying in, felt like a war. Like, this is the first Gears of War game that some scenes, some big battles have actually felt like wars.
Right.
That bit in the street, those bits in the street, when you've got friendly AI with you, like just the robots and stuff, like, oh crap, I'm actually got these now. They're shooting with me. And at the very end, when it's literally a last stand, the whole floor's falling in, and you're looking up, and there's just guys everywhere. I want more. I think it's going to have to end in some sort of big battle, not just 4 blokes up on a tower shooting at a queen for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think they do. If they do something new, they need to do it better. Use the technology, like you said, like make it look more like a war. Stuff like that. Like that's actually, when I went back to the start of Gears 2, I forgot how much stuff happens at the very beginning on the streets with like people piling in cars and whatever. But like that, as soon as when I went back into Horde mode on 5, and when I was playing as Marcus in amongst the city streets doing multiplayer, and he's going nice as he's reloading a gun, like all that stuff. Yeah, it's kind of cartoony and whatever, but it felt like Gears in a way that hardly any of the campaign did. So for me, it's whatever those like sort of characterful, identifiable signature elements are that like come through in Acts 1 and 4 and get out the way in 2 and 3. That's what I want from 6. I want them to kind of realize what the hell they're making. It doesn't have to be this big accessible thing for everybody. It doesn't need to be this, smoothed over Mass Effect Andromeda type thing. It can be a Gears game, and there's nothing wrong with that. They already have it on Game Pass anyway. Like people are going to play it regardless. It's part of their subscription. Needed to get that out of my system.
Calm down, man.
Is it all right?
Is
it all right?
It's an all right game.
People say we don't debate that much, but there you
I
go.
love it. Yeah, I know.
That was the debate.
A couple of people in the comments when we started the podcast and stuff were just like, you guys always agree on everything. Not anymore.
Not
mate,
anymore.
no.
We've changed.
We've changed.
We've been messaging this for each other for days now.
Oh, you have no idea. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of Gears 5 of the story. Where do you think it's going to go and what do you want from Gears 6? For now, though, this has been, I was going to say this has been the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. It hasn't, because this might just be a regular thing that we put up as a roundtable. This has been WhatCulture Gaming. I've been Scott, and I've been joined by Ben Roy Turner.
Goodbye. Bring back Dizzy.
And Josh Brown.
Goodbye.
We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Video games.